In this video, I'm going to show you how to grade 8-bit footage, and then also give you a power grade that you can use on any type of project. The 8-bit footage that we are using is literally just me recording a video on my iPhone 13 8-bit outside. And I'm going to show you how to grade 8-bit footage. So this is the power grade that at the end of this video you can download in the description. I'll make that available for you. And we're going to go through this and I'm going to explain exactly what's going on here. So for every single type of project that you have, it's good to create a CST at the start and a CST at the end. CST means color space transform. We are changing the input color space to Davinci wide gamut. We're working in Davinci wide gamut. And then at the end, we're turning it back into Rec 709. So this stuff that I shot was Rec 709. Maybe you have S-Log2 footage. And if you have S-Log2 footage, instead of having your input color space Rec 709 2.4, which I have, because I shot it in Rec 709, you're just going to change this to S-Log. And then we're going to move into Davinci wide gamut. We're going to do all our corrections in Davinci wide gamut, and then we're going to move it out. So let's go through each node, and I'm going to show you what to do. Don't worry about this bottom part yet. I'm going to come to it. So we're moving from Rec 709 2.4 to Davinci. Make sure that your project settings, your timeline color space is Davinci wide gamut, because this is going to affect your color space aware tools. When you use these tools, map it to Davinci wide gamut. And your output is 709 2.4. Now you can see straight out of the camera, it looks pretty good. Here you are going to do your normal corrections. So we'll start with exposure. You can either use just the offset up and down, or what you can do is you go HDR and you use the exposure setting here. Always when I work with this, I'm looking at my parades. I'm looking at my parades, and I also have, you won't be able to see it, I have a Nobe Omniscope right here. I have a false color screen here. And so I use that, and I use these guys to see where my image is lying. I'm going to reset this. So straight out of the gate, you can see the parade. It's like really high and it's really low, but we're not losing any information. I think the exposure is good. Contrast, it's fine, honestly. It depends on what your preference is. You can start manipulating the contrast with, make sure that you're in primaries, with the contrast key. I'm literally just going off my eye, depending on what type of contrast I want. There's no right or wrong. I'll go here, let's say contrast there. I'm going to go offset down a bit. And then I'm also going to use my saturation. So this node here, I use contrast and saturation. Let's say I'm happy there. Now moving to balance. Is this image balanced? A good way to see if this image is balanced is to look at your vector scope. And I'm actually going to put the scopes on this screen so that you can actually see that better. And now you can see my vector scope here. Do you know what I'm actually going to do? Move my omniscope here so that you can even see that as well. There we go. Now you can actually see what I'm looking at. False color there, and I'm looking at my scopes here. This looks pretty balanced to me because I'm looking at the vector scope and you can see it's kind of nicely in the middle there. Another way to see if it's balanced, you right click here, you say show color RGB value. You make sure your blacks are black and your whites are white. If your blacks are black, it usually is balanced. If I click there, you can see the values are what, 28, 30, 34. If those values are exactly the same, it means they are either black, white, or neutral gray. And it's pretty close. So I'd say this image is balanced. The fourth node that I use is the good old HSV SAT node. And that's created by looking at your color space, changing it to HSV. You turn off channel 1 and 3. And what this does is when you use the gamma and the gain, it affects the parts of your image the most saturated and the least saturated. So if you go down with gamma, it's actually going to decrease the saturation in your least saturated areas. And for 8-bit footage, that's actually really good because sometimes you get color casts on stuff that you don't want. So a really good way of getting rid of that color casts in your blacks and things that are close to black or neutral is you go down with gamma. And to counteract that, you go up with gain. So if you go down with gamma and you up with gain, what happens is the least saturated places are getting less saturation with gamma, and gain, the parts of your image that's more saturated are getting the most saturation. Now let's say we're happy with this. The last one I like to do is the hue, sat, and luminance. So I'm just going to use my panel. I go hue versus sat, hue versus luma. I look at the image, and this is totally just personal preference. The thing with 8-bit is you have to understand, you can't manipulate the image too much. So you really want the best type of footage shot in camera. So what that I mean is make sure the exposure is correct in camera and the white balance is accurate. If you have those two under control, you can color grade pretty well with that footage. If it's bad footage, you can only improve it so much. This is something that I really ran into at the start of me color grading is, I got like trash footage and I was like, why can't I make this thing look better? Why can't I make this thing look maybe not like a feature film, but like good quality? It's because the footage you are working with is bad. So you have to understand you are going to have limitations if you work with bad footage. So to recap, try and get footage with good exposure in camera and the white balance being good. Now, when we move to hue versus sat and luminance, we can't push it too much in 8-bit. So you really want to do small type of adjustments. Let's increase the sat a little bit there. Let's change the hue, one more green. Maybe you want the luma of the green to be a bit darker. And here you kind of just play around. With what you want. I like these guys. This is where I shape the light. So in your image, obviously you have contrast and saturation, but also where do you want the person's eye to be? And with light, with power windows, you can manipulate your image really well. Let's say I just want to focus on the car because it's a car commercial. What we can do is go here, aspect, and we're going to rotate it like this. And then we're going to soften it, and then we're going to move it. Now I'm just going to use my gain to push down. Take that away. Now all of a sudden you can see your eye really gets pulled to the car. So enable, disable. These light nodes are incredibly strong if you know how to use them. So I definitely play around with them and kind of see how you want to shape your image. Then I will talk about this in a sec. With your OFX, so I kind of went at it in a bit of a reverse way because usually what you would do is you would go CST, you balance your shot, right? And then you apply your look. So your look could be, you can go in here and manually do it. You could say, let's say green or red channel. And then you start pushing red in the bottom or less red in the bottom, more red at the top. Like you can play around with this. That's one way of creating a look. But I definitely recommend just getting one of the plugins. So one of the plugins could be like a dehancer or a look designer or any of those guys. And then play around with the looks. So we can go dehancer. We're going to go source is Davinci White Gamut, right? So it goes through here. And now you can start playing around with looks. You'll probably, if you're going to do this, get a better result than you messing around with the curves if you don't really know what you're doing. So when you have time, go through Dehancer, go through Look Designer, see if you can create the look that you like. And then, lastly, this guy. So this is the right way of keying in your project. When you work with 8-bit footage, just remember you don't have a lot to play around with, right? So if you can help it, don't key. Don't key at all with 8-bit footage. But if you have to key, and this power grade that I'm giving you, you can use it on any project, this is how you do it. So remember, we are working from Rec 709. We're pushing it in Davinci White Gamut, or if you have S-Log2, or for that matter, it could be ARRI, it could be whatever. We want to work in Davinci White Gamut, and then we're going to push out in Rec 709 2.4. Now, you could also ask, like I'm working in Rec 709, why the hell am I pushing it to Davinci White Gamut? Why don't I just grade it in Rec 709? The reason is, once you understand this process for 8-bit, for anything, let's say you have one clip that's Rec 709, you have another clip that's S-Log2, you have another clip that's ARRI. With this structure, you're going to take all of them and put them in the same color space that you are working in. You're moving all of them to Davinci White Gamut. And that's what you need to do with your clips. You need to have a common color workspace. Now back to keying. Let's say this is S-Log2 instead of Rec 709. We're going through the corrections and it's pushing out to Rec 709 2.4. If I grab a key here, I'm grabbing it from Davinci White Gamut, which is a very flat image. and it's incredibly hard for Davinci to know what you actually want to grab from there. So we have to tell Davinci what kind of keys we want, and the best way of doing that is this. You create another node that's your CST key, and you are just going to transform it from, let's imagine this is slog2 to rec 709, or any type of log that you have to rec 709. Then you are going to create 2 nodes, and these are going to be your keying nodes. Now, I'm going to use a qualifier 3D. Let's say I just want the green. Now this key is a clean key, and I'm connecting this key to this node that's in Davinci wide gamut. So these guys are still working together. You've only created this to tell this node to use a key from here. And then you're going to make the change in this node. If we want to change the hue, whatever you want to do. You can also key skin here if you want to, but please don't key in 8-bit. And now you have a node structure that you could use for any type of project you have. Remember, 8-bit, super important. Don't key if you don't need to key. Make small adjustments because your image can break easily. If you are the guy behind the camera shooting in 8-bit, make sure that the exposure is good and your white balance is good. Then your color grading is going to be the best it can possibly be. Like I said at the start of the video, I'm going to give you this power grade to use on your 8-bit footage, but you can also use this on any other type of project that you have. I'm going to put that in the description below.